Welcome back. In the previous session, we have very quickly discussed the whole issues about break-even point analysis, then margin of safety, degree of operating leverage, etc. Now, in this session, we will be very slowly discussing at length about all these issues which were discussed. So, the ultimate objective of an enterprise is to make more and more profit. So, what actually drives profit, or what are the factors? There are many factors actually. To increase profit, you just increase your sales perhaps, and then sales is not in your control. There has to be customers, and then there has to means the market size should be big enough. Suppose customers are limited, then you can increase the price perhaps without increasing the volume, but then if you increase the price, customers may go away. Alternately, you can reduce the cost. So, there is always a play between all these points. You have to make some compromise this side and some adjustment on the other side to increase the profit. The subject in management which deals with all of these is called managerial economics. Managerial economics deals with the decision making process of managers and entrepreneurs in response to changing economic conditions of the market. It actually uses economic theories and analytical methods to create new information that helps managers to make decisions under changing economic circumstances. So, means in a nutshell, these are the subtopics or major topics of managerial economics: demand supply analysis, cost and production analysis, then inventory management, advertising means how much to spend in advertisement, how much is the increase in sales and profit, then pricing decision, pricing policies, profit management, which is means in our break-even point analysis is part of profit management, then capital management, meaning capital investment decisions. So, these are, but we are not going to discuss all of them or even any of them in detail. It's a huge subject, but we are going to discuss about profitability and break-even analysis from that point of view. So, we saw what profit is, and we saw that there are two components of cost, or all the cost can be divided into two categories. One is fixed cost, another is variable cost. So, you eliminate all the cost, or you incur or you pay all the cost out of your sales. Whatever is left, only that part is your profit. So, you remove fixed cost, you remove variable cost, whatever is left, that is the profit. So, your objective should be to go for a structure where this leftover, the profit which is more, that is our primary objective, and how we do that is the topic. Now, relation between cost, volume, profit analysis, even though topic is break even, but normally is referred to as cost, volume, profit, because if you want to make profit, you have to understand cost and you have to see at what volume you create more profit. So, that will help you to decide or select particular business model. That is the relevance of this topic in our discussion. So, profit is nothing but sales minus all the expenses or cost and expenses used interchangeably. You have to remember that price remains fixed. You cannot just increase price and make profit, because depending on the market situation, unless you are in a monopolistic market, you cannot increase price. At the same time, the total cost of a product or unit cost of a product will continue to reduce as you produce more and more. Variable component will remain same. A particular product has two components of cost. One is variable component, variable cost component, the other is fixed cost component. So, variable cost components remains fixed because the amount of raw material, amount of consumables that go into producing one particular product remains the same, but you divide the fixed cost, total fixed cost, by number of units produced. So, denominator is number of units. As you produce more and more units, the denominator is larger and larger, the average fixed cost per unit continues to reduce, go down. Therefore, we need to find which business can potentially give you high profit at a lower volume. Alternately, there may be business model which gives you profit at a very higher level, but then beyond that profit margin is huge, as we saw in the previous session. In a high capital structure context and low variable cost context, your break even point will come much later because your fixed cost is very high. But then beyond break even point, for every additional unit of production, you actually make more profit. So, therefore, the type of business and its cost structure, its degree of operating leverage actually decides which model is the right model. Then yeah, that is it about that. Then cost and cost driver. Cost we have discussed, so I will just discuss about cost driver. Cost driver is any output measures that cause cost, meaning anything that you use in the product or to produce the product that adds to total cost of the product is a cost driver. Putting it differently, a factor or an input that can cause a change in the cost of an activity is a cost driver. A particular activity may have multiple cost drivers. Now, we discussed about fixed cost and variable cost, but there is another method of classifying cost is direct cost and indirect cost. This is used for costing of a product. If you are deciding as to what is the cost of this particular, say this pointer, what is the cost of this pointer, if you have to decide, then you have to understand direct cost, indirect cost, because this pointer will be manufactured in a room where many other products also perhaps will be manufactured. So, what will be the proportion of, say, rent of this room into this product, what will be the proportion of rent on another product. Suppose you are assembling computer in the same room. So, computer is a larger product with high cost, higher selling price. You cannot just make an average contribution. So, there the direct cost and indirect cost allocation is a huge topic we are not discussing today. So, that is about product specific cost. You use this classification direct and indirect for product costing, whereas company specific cost classification is about fixed cost and variable cost. So, there you try to use this classification for understanding the profitability and where you make profit, where all you do not make profit. Here is an example showing both direct and indirect, variable and fixed cost. So, continuing in the same example, suppose you are manufacturing shirts, yours is a business of ready-made garment manufacturing and selling. So, a factor that change which causes a change in the cost of activity is a cost driver that we have defined, and activity can have more than one cost drivers, like say for shirt the fabric is a cost driver, because if the shirt is longer or if you are manufacturing two shirts, so the cost is increasing, or quality of the fabric will determine cost of the shirt. So, that is a cost driver. Button is a cost driver. Then consumables, any other consumer like threads is a cost driver. Labor cost or wages to the tailor is a cost driver. There are indirect costs like say rent, that is also a cost driver, but then this is fixed cost, because in a year you pay a certain amount of rent that does not change. So, that is fixed cost. At the same time, rent cannot be identified on the product, meaning you cannot see rent on the shirt. So, that is why it is indirect cost. Whereas you can see the button, you can see the fabric, you can see thread, you can see labor also, because fabric has been converted into shirt, whereas you do not see depreciation on the shirt. So, depreciation is an indirect cost, and at the same time it is a fixed cost. Of course, depreciation can be again direct cost as well. We will not go into that discussion. Remember one thing, that these are not sacrosanct. These are supposed to help you to make a decision. So, it is up to you to make depending on the context you can make some variation. Like say insurance, a component of insurance can be fixed, another component can be variable, meaning the insurance that you pay for the building and for machinery is fixed, because annually you pay the same insurance fees. Whereas for inventory, depending on the level of operation, your insurance premium will go up or down. So this can be both variable. There can be a component which is variable, a component which is fixed. So it depends on your trend, your past historical data. You can decide which component is fixed, which component is variable. At the same time, direct and indirect cost also is classified that way. Direct cost is visible on the product. Costs which are not visible on the product or identified on the product are indirect cost. Here is the definition. I will not spend a lot of time on this. Let us move forward. Fixed variable also we have discussed. Now again, taking up the same example, suppose you are starting a ready-made garment business, not necessarily only shirt, but various other garments as well. So let us see the cost structure. We will go a little slow here. We showed this slide earlier, but rent is a fixed cost. Just to drive home the point that on a monthly basis you have to pay the same rent, and you need this room for manufacturing and maintaining inventory. Fabric is a variable cost, because the number of dresses that you make or the fabric, cost of the fabric is directly proportional to the number of dresses that you are going to make. So obviously that is a variable cost. The same example shown here, I will not repeat in a wasting time. So you can see, identify from here the component which are fixed and which are variable. Of course, there are very few fixed cost here, majority of them are variable, like a zipper, button, then thread are all variable cost, whereas if you can see any tool or something within that star thing, these are fixed cost and only depreciation will be added as a cost during the year. So these are, say, delivery expenses. If you have to deliver only one shirt, some cost. If you have to deliver multiple shirts, cost will be multiplied. So it depends on number. So you keep on, these are variable cost. Now machine also is contributing to convert your product, your fabric into product. So machine cost also is a cost driver. What is that? That is depreciation. Depreciation is a proportional allocation of your machine cost into the product. So in that case it is a cost driver and you have to allocate some, but depreciation of machine is done on a periodic basis. So fixed cost, actually I forgot to tell you, is a periodic cost. Any cost that you pay on a periodic basis, like rent you pay for a month, salary you pay for a month, likewise whatever you pay for a particular period are mostly fixed cost, because you have to pay over this period. So depreciation is a fixed cost, because you pay that on an annual basis. So this point actually I wanted to make, and I already made earlier, but I will just repeat that you have only sales to meet all the expenses. Whatever expenses you incur, those are to be paid out of sales. So sales is the only one cash inflow, and you have to meet all the cash outflows out of that. Pay salary, rent, this, that, everything is to be made out of sales. And recovery of fixed cost, say machinery, building, suppose you have your own building. So whatever you have invested, that has to come back, meaning you have to recover all the expenses, and recovery is through sales only. Therefore, the cost that you incur for fixed assets, suppose you have some steel plant, the initial cost will be something like, say, 2000 crore rupees. Now you have to recover that out of the sales proceeds. How do you recover that? You apportion a part of the fixed cost that you incur for setting up the plant in the form of depreciation. That is a process of recovering the capital expenses that you have incurred. Now if you have permanent staff, you are paying salary, that means whether there is no production or no production, you have to pay, then it becomes fixed cost. If your wages is based on volume, meaning that if you stitch one shirt, this amount of money, 10 shirts, 10 times that money, then it is variable cost. Electricity cost is variable because it depends on number of units that you produce. It may have a fixed component, unless you are very particular about classifying them into fixed, dividing them into fixed and variable. it's kind of, you can consider that as variable, because in an industrial scenario, if there is no production, the company will be almost shut. It will be just lighting the exterior, that is hardly anything. Maintenance may have two components, like if you have scheduled maintenance, say periodically you have 3 monthly or quarterly or something, that may be a fixed component, but usually unless something is mentioned, you take it as a variable cost, because if you produce more, your machine will have more wear and tear and it will demand more maintenance. Insurance may have two components, but we will go by only single component for the time being. It may have two components. For all fixed assets, you may have a separate insurance policy, and for inventory, you may have another policy. So, if you really are interested to bifurcate them, then it's very easy to do. Interest definitely will have two components. Suppose you have invested, say, 1 crore rupees for plant and machinery. You have to pay interest on 1 crore rupees as long as you are not repaying the money. So, this remains fixed on an annual basis. Every year you have to pay interest on fixed, this is called term loan, on the term loan or the loan that you have raised to create long term asset. You also raise money, meaning you also borrow money from bank to meet your working capital requirement, that is to maintain your inventory. Anything that you see in your factory requires money. Nothing comes free. So, you have huge amount of inventory in your go down, meaning that you have bought that with money. So, you may not actually use your own money, you have borrowed money from the bank, you have to pay interest. So, the interest that you pay for working capital loan is variable cost. The interest that you pay for long term loan is fixed. Contribution and contribution margin. We have seen that earlier. Contribution is nothing but selling price minus variable cost per unit selling price minus per unit variable cost is the contribution margin, and contribution is the total sales minus total variable cost. Cost volume profit analysis, we have seen that. Just to repeat that for better knowledge, initially we defined S is unit selling price, V is unit variable cost, F is annual fixed cost. Notice the distinction, one is unit selling price, unit variable cost, F is annual fixed cost. Q is quantity produced and sold, meaning that whatever you produce, you sell that. These are the data available, estimate the break even point, or before that estimate the contribution. Contribution is total sales minus total variable cost. Contribution margin is selling price minus variable cost per unit, which is 50 minus 30 is 20. So, contribution margin is, you can actually estimate the contribution margin as a percentage, that suppose you have 10 different businesses, you can actually compare which business is better through contribution margin. In terms of contribution margin, it may not give you idea about better or worse, but then that is how it may work. So, here is the break even point. So, fixed cost plus variable cost is total cost is 80,000. So, that is it. Contribution margin is 20. Here is the formula. We will just revisit them. Total profit is total sales minus total cost. Total cost is what? Variable cost plus fixed cost. Variable cost is what? Unit variable cost multiplied by total number of unit that you sell. So, P is equal to S into quantity minus V into quantity plus S. So, this is the formula. I have copied this slide earlier. So, it is just a copy of that, but since we are discussing second time over, so all slides are repeated. So, at break even profit is 0. So, you just substitute P is equal to 0, you get this formula for break even, and we normally denote as Q star for break even quantity. This has already been discussed. So, now you substitute those data here and you get that 1000 quantities to be produced, so as to meet all the expenses by sales. So, whatever is your sales or whatever is your expenses, that can be met with sales at that quantity. Total sales revenue is equal to total cost, or total sales is equal to total sales, and revenues are the same thing. Now, graphical representation, again a repetition. This is the fixed cost. Fixed cost is a horizontal line, because irrespective of the volume that you produce, fixed cost remains the same. Variable cost changes with quantity in a straight line. The slope of variable cost line is unit variable cost. This is the total cost. Total sales, where total sales line or revenue line intersect the total cost line, is the break even point. Now, look at this. We have shown the slope of the lines. The sales line, unit selling price is the slope. The variable cost line, unit variable cost is the slope. For total cost line, slope is the unit variable cost. And here is the profit zone and loss zone, meaning ahead of the break even point line we have profit zone, and behind the break even point is the loss zone. So, this is the break even point, and then that is it for the second session, and we will continue in the next session to complete the remainder of the thing. Thank you.